You know, this gut feeling you feel sometimes, or maybe it's a voice in your head, or maybe, I don't know, butterflies in the tummy. Anyway, whatever form it takes, how do you know it's instinct or intuition? Should you follow it? Is it a trap? Let's dive into this. Bonjour, Practical Dreamers. It's Claire from integrallyalive.com with practical body, mind, wisdom, and tools to create balance in life and be free to be who you are, to do what you love, and to live how you want. So each time I coach around relationship to food, especially relationship to food, it always shows up in intuitive eating. I get the same statement. Oh, well, if I listen to my intuition, I would be eating ice cream all the time. Well, replace ice cream by, pizza, whatever is your favorite. But there's this idea that you cannot trust your intuition because it's just plain wrong. And well, I disagree. This is not intuition. What they are talking about then is instinct. So let's talk a little bit more about this because a lot of what I do is based on intuitive living. Relationship to food is much easier when you intuitively choose the right food. Relationships are much easier when you intuitively choose the right partners and so on and so forth. But how do you know it's intuition? And should you always follow your intuition? Well, follow me. Instinct. Instinct it's a reaction. So it's not something that you see coming. And it's not subtle. It's not subtle. So it's just boom, let's do this. And it can be acquired, like it can be innate, like you always had it. Like if you're human, if a bear shows up, you will have the instinct to run. Or if you believe you're Superman, to fight. But honestly, I think you should run. And it can also come from something you learned. And a lot comes from our childhood. What was the case in your country of origin, in your family? So for example, if you're French, and if I'm taking the example of food, once you've eaten, I mean, at the end of the lunch or dinner, you will want a dessert. You have this ingrained in your mind that you finish, like a proper meal is not finished until you ate something sweet. Or you cannot properly eat a salad without bread. Like this is something that if you're French right now, you know this, toi tu sais. And actually, once you begin to travel, you realize, oh God, these freaking strange people, they eat salad without bread. Oh, that's so weird for me. And this is an example from my life, yeah, when I was living in Spain. It was so difficult at first. And then I realized, oh, that's really a French thing. So it's based on your species, really, and your genealogy, but also, oh, there's truck passing by, also your experience. So if you experience something really strong, well, yeah, that, now I'm onto the analogy with food. But for example, I hate coffee. I never could drink it. I just find it's not for me. It probably comes from the first and last time I tried it, and I was 9, 10. I was a kid, and it was cold. We were out, and there was nothing warm, to drink or except coffee. Um, and I must have begged my mother to like let me try a bit because I saw all the grown-ups with a cup of coffee, and they were like, "Oh, this is so good! This is so warm and comforting." I was a bit jealous. So I tried it, and it was awful. I just my whole face changed, and I was like, "Ah, what's this thing? It's just hell." Now, instinctively now, since then, when I see coffee, this is the thing that's ingrained in my body. It's a reaction. It's in my body. It's in my emotions, and there's nothing I do intellectually or rationally about it. It just comes like that. Ooh, coffee, good. So this comes from my experience. So instinct looks logical to your intellect, and you suddenly have a few habits coming from it. Now, intuition. Intuition is knowledge without intellectual process. And often it looks weird and not logic at all. And it's rather subtle as well. It doesn't make sense a lot of time, at least not until later. So for example, and that's really interesting because it shows that we all have intuition, and some listen to it and some don't, but all of us have intuition. On the plane that crashes. So if you look at the history of planes that have crashed, there is a higher rate of people canceling their booking on those planes when nothing tells them, hey, watch out, this is dangerous. Why? Well, today I'll call it intuition. Make what you want of it. But on the moment, it doesn't make sense. You feel like, yeah, no, it's not good. You know, it is what we often call gut feeling. I don't feel that person. In French, we even say, I don't smell that person. I don't feel that person. Why? We don't really know. But I know a lot of people, including myself, who have these, this experience of, I know I should have to listen to that. And it often intuition, right? So it's subtle, it doesn't make sense, at least not in the moment. And often it takes a little bit of courage to listen to it, exactly because it doesn't make sense. But intuition is always true. The thing is, because it's subtle, it doesn't make sense, so our interpretation of it can be totally wrong. And because it often looks completely irrational, we find a lot of reasons not to listen to it. So how do they show up? I thought that instinct is a reaction, right? So often a bodily reaction, very emotional, very strong. Intuition is much subtle, and it depends on the senses, on the sensory inputs. So it is related to the awareness we have of our senses, meaning that the more embodied you are, aware of your physical, emotional, etc. intelligences, the closer you are to your intuition. Because that's where you're going to feel it. That's where you're going to feel, oh, I feel constricted in my chest. And I'm aware enough to know it's not usual. So I'm going to listen to that. So it's when you're aware enough to know your baseline, to know your base senses, and then feel that something else is showing up that is not really coming from you, that is like an information you receive. I had a lot of it, for example, when I was working as a shiatsu practitioner. When I give a shiatsu session, often I will not always, but when I need, usually I feel emotions, for example, or I feel physical sensations. And because I trained it, I know when it's mine, and I'm like, okay, just put this aside, it's not helping, or if it's coming from the person. And then it's a very valuable information that I can work with, that I can test to see if it's really true, and that I can work with to find a resolution. So our last thing before we go to what can we do with it? Intuition, it's much faster than logic to make decisions, because it can hold, and that will probably be the topic of another podcast. It can hold a whole lot of information. We have overload information. I talked about it already with the attention deficit and the fact that we can hold more or less, there's this magical number, 7 plus minus 2, of bits of information we can hold in our mind, in conscious mind, but intuition, it's endless. Like we can hold endless informations because we don't have to be conscious of them. It can be totally unconscious. It's just the tip of the iceberg. You can say it like that, actually. The tip of the iceberg is your intuition talking to you and feeling like, ooh, constriction in the chest. Ooh, not good. Okay, I don't know why, but I'm gonna go now. So actually, exploration. Um, when traveling, I had to rely so much on my intuition. I mean, I use it daily, but traveling is really probably has been a training for my intuition. There is a lot of times you don't know anything about the place or people, and you have to take a decision: will I trust that person or not? Will I stay here or not? Being lost, I love losing myself when I arrive to a place. It's probably my favorite way of discovering a place. It can be dangerous at times. There are places where you don't want to get lost, and I ended up a few times in places where I felt, for lack of a better word, I would call it the atmosphere of the place, and I was like, okay, now is the time where I'm going to pretend I'm totally confident and exactly know where I am, and I'm going to get the fuck out of here. Pardon my Aussie. So there's something you can, you can try for yourself. With less dramatically. Will I enjoy this place? Or arriving to a party or a meeting or somewhere you're going to meet people. How are the people here? And preparing yourself. So to begin with, a very simple exercise you can do is each time you go through a door or a gate or something resembling any of that, do a check, like check your sensations, especially physical sensations. So how do I feel globally? Now, how do I breathe? What about my muscle tensions? And you can go very granular within it. And it all depends if you're already used to have this kind of awareness or not. For example, if you're, I don't know if you do yoga on a regular basis, well, depending on the type of yoga you do, actually. But if you do any type of somatic practice, you will be used to listen to your sensations. And so you can go very granular. But at the very least, like globally, 2 questions, well, 3 actually, globally, how do I feel? How do I breathe? And how about my muscle tensions? Do I tense or do I feel relaxed? These are the main 3. And then you can go very granular in it. But if you are to that level, you probably don't need me to ask the questions, And not so it's 2, it's notice and note, because again and again and again, if you do it on a really regular basis, a few times a day, you're going to realize and you're going to learn your baseline. How do I globally feel most of the time? How do I globally breathe most of the time? Muscle tension, etc., etc. And so you're going to be able to see the difference. Okay, globally I'm like this, but now, oh, I feel more tense than usual, or I'm breathing more up than usual, or things like that. And then you can discover what it means for you. I know for me, the big thing is my muscle tensing. I can really feel like when I meet people or when I'm in a place where I should leave, there's this almost like if I was already like retracting or shrinking. So basically, you are asking yourself, in other words, what is the atmosphere of the place? But notice the difference between asking, what is the atmosphere of the place, which can get you really into your head, and how do I feel here, which is subtly with your sensory awareness, sensory perceptions, which will lead you to your intuition. there's something really interesting. Maybe you've heard about remote viewing, which is a mind-blowing experiment. Well, it's actually going on now. It's a skill, it's a practice, it's a process. And it was an experiment that the military, the US military did in the 70s, I think. Oh, might be mistaken. I think it was in the 70s. Well, for over 20 years, actually. Of, well, exactly that. Remote viewing means I am here and I'm psychically seeing what's over there. So basically, you as psychic spy or something. Anyway, this process is really interesting because it's the army, hey, so it's really detailed and step by step and really logical and rational for something that it totally isn't. And one of the things in this process is start with your senses. And if you have a tendency to go up in your head and make deductions, stop, slow down, go back to your senses. And it's really interesting to see that, yeah, anything that goes up to your head, well, it is possible that it's an intuition, but then it means you really, or it's luck, or you're really trained to do that. So start with your senses. How do you feel globally? How do you breathe? What is my muscle tension? Feel the atmosphere of the place. And then the next level is actually a bit going up. What does it tell you about your experience in this place? So what is the atmosphere? And then what's going to come up with me? How should I adapt? Depending on what's the case is, staying, leaving. If I say what language, what behavior can I adopt, it can go very, very far. So that's it, my little exercise exploration for this week. Like always, I'm super curious, so tell me how it goes. I hope you learned something and you can use it in your daily life, because that's the whole point, right? Practical dreamers. I want to take this into your daily life and use it daily. There's beautiful tools. And that was my weekly dose of fierce love for you. So boom, your life just got easier. And thanks for being here, of course. I love your being here week after week. Drop your comments and questions on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube. I love these conversations. I always reply. And stay tuned for the next video, of course. Oh, and share to whoever needs to hear this today. Share the spread the love and embody 100% you. Until then, bye.